Have you given much thought as to whether you prefer a sunrise or a sunset? Well, either way, you probably love those warm colors fading into and out of a deep, cool blue water or a foggy mountaintop. Join me today as we use a warm color palette inspired by a sunset. Now, let's dive in. Welcome, Searoxxers. Well, I'm excited to be using a warm color palette today inspired by a sunset. We're going to start off with a warm gray on our 11 by 14 board. To build our sunset inspiration, we're going to use some warm color palette with some neutrals, green moss or algae, and of course that Pantone color of the year, peach fuzz. To give interest to your art, try varying the degrees of intensity of your colors. Here I've added some white and changed my peach fuzz into a lighter tint. If you use a color palette like this, my helpful hint for you is to let that orange dry a little bit before you add that green, because otherwise you may make just mud. If you choose to use this painting technique, I suggest you turn the board around just to keep things symmetrical and not looking obvious that one end was the pour end and one end was the drip end. You know, one of the hardest things to do as an artist is to walk away from your art, but it is so important because your brain needs to rest, your art needs to rest, and then you come back with fresh eyes and a fresh brain to see what needs to be added or taken away. Once the base colors are done, then it's time to go in with a brush and fine-tune everything and give all the special details to your piece. If you're enjoying today's video so far, I would so appreciate it if you would splash that like button, click the bell, and then you never miss a video. Okay, don't lose your marbles. It's time to make some organic lines. I'm using a metallic paint and a little acrylic ink mixed together. I've got my marbles, and don't forget your tongs so you can pry them out of your little cup and retrieve them. And then it's time to roll. I do want to point out that I chose gold specifically, or choose some other color that is in your color palette, because if you get one of these little critters to go rogue on you, then it's going to look like it's part of your piece and not an oopsie. Just roll these little suckers until you're happy with the design you get, and then make sure and let everything dry. Our paint is dry now, and boy, I sure love the colors in this piece. And you know, you may choose to stop there. I could have, but I went ahead and decided to add some of the lines in a crackle paste instead of a texture paste to this piece. To pipe the lines, I used a piping bag. If you don't have one of those, you can just use any kind of baggie and put it in there, cut off your end, and then just follow whatever lines or design that you decide to put on top. Make sure before you go on to your painting portion that you let that paste or whatever you did there dry 24 hours. So I don't know about you, but I am a very visual person, probably obviously. And for me to map things out like this is really, really helpful. And so I did just that. I took little pieces of tape, mapped my design out where I was going to paint and where I was going to add texture. And that way you can create some interesting effects as you go along. Now, be prepared. You will need to do maybe 2 to 3 coats of paint when you're doing this step to cover up whatever background you have. But again, it's just totally up to you and how you want your piece to be. To take this opportunity to invite you to subscribe to the channel, like, click the bell, share with your friends, and that way we can make art together. Once your sections of paint are dry, then it is time to add sand. I'm going to be using my matte gel medium. You could also use a Mod Podge. Here's another helpful hint for you. I went ahead and painted the background of the sand pieces because I knew that if I didn't, you were going to be able to see the stripy lines behind it. So I went ahead and gave those a coat of paint, and then I'm just going to put my sand right on top. Now, whatever medium you're using to adhere your sand with, not sandwich, sand with, put it on kind of thick and put it in your little section before you put your sand down. Now you're also going to notice that I already painted the edges of these sections gold and some aren't. Anyway, the reason I did is because I didn't want to have to fight the gold paint around the sand and possibly get paint in the sand, on the sand, and that would be a total mess. So sometimes you just have to think ahead, and in this case I actually did. The sand I'm using is just a sand from Dollar Tree, and I really like it because it is that real bleached out kind of white sand beach look. Now, go ahead and leave your sand there, pat it down, leave it there until it is dry. I then take it to the trash can, dump it off, and then I put a second coat of sand on there. But that is just me. If you're happy with one, then by all means, you do you. Now, once the sand is dry, I will tape it off and give it a seal coat with this matte finish. Spray, matte being the operative word, unless you want shiny sand. And one of the last things we need to do besides a varnish is our TNT process of gold paint. That is time consuming and tedious, but oh so worth it in the end. But after that TNT process, you're going to have an absolutely gorgeous piece. We do want to seal the other cells, and I'm going to use Arteza's acrylic varnish in satin to do that. But don't go anywhere because our beautiful outside reveal with actual sunshine is next. Well, here's our beautiful sunshiny reveal, and boy, that warm color palette is just so striking to me. Hey, thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed yourself, you're inspired to try something new, or just entertained. I invite you to join the Searoxx family, like, share, subscribe, and it helps me create more content each week. You can find me on other social media platforms, my website, and my Etsy shop. Thanks for watching, and until next time, go beach or go home.